Well, it seems like we're getting everybody together in the meantime. Hope everybody's having a wonderful day, evening, afternoon, whenever you're listening to this. This is A Day in the Hangar, episode 19. The Gundam Versus, or PS4 Versus, just to avoid any kind of further confusion. Roundtable discussion. It's a good thing that we have like a bunch of varying perspectives, so depending on how this will go, may take much. It probably might be the longest episode that we've ever run in this show's entire history, or it could be roughly the shortest, despite having a number of guests. So, once the timer is over and everything is said and done, everybody's in the chat room and voice call, we should be able to lay down the ground rules so we can be a little bit more organized. As I mentioned in the Discord chat, that to avoid any case of everybody talking over each other, everybody has a chance to speak. And I'll also kind of put on the stream, also announce, if anybody's listening on SoundCloud, the kind of topics that we're going to be to. So, I'm going to very hello.
You're
Good.
I'm all right.
All right. Good sloth.
Howdy.
Howdy.
Howdy. Big podcast this time.
Guess I could probably wait on come up soon. I guess we can. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, sorry.
Speak of the devil.
And then he's up here. All right. So, Green, Sloth, Geo. I guess this would be the perfect time to introduce yourselves in case yourself before in previous episodes. Again.
Okay, well, I guess I'll start. I'm just Green. I'm some guy from Europe. Started playing Gundam in GVS. A lot to talk about. Lots of good things, lots of bad things, and some good things, but mostly bad things. So,
Right, and you, Sloth?
Well, I'm Sloth Cakes. I've been playing Gundam for quite some time, and just in general with the series. I've mostly played like Full Boost and stuff, a little bit of that, but Versus was when I mostly played it, and yeah, I got a Versus was something, all right.
And Geo?
Hello, I'm XStarGeoX. I've been playing since vanilla for the PlayStation 3, and I play a suit of various cars.
Alrighty. So, I guess we could probably start with just get things going out the gas. So, I guess we can probably start with the first impressions. Active enough for?
You'll be all right.
Yeah.
I'll just take your lunch money later.
Please don't. Please don't. So, what else has everyone been up to lately?
Oh, just taking it easy. Was watching Crow going over a few replays, and then he started playing some matches, and I was just basically just busting his balls all day about how he's bad. He's actually, it's just that everybody he was paired with was just making some very boneheaded decisions, and I was like, yeah, Thought you said it was NA that was trash. Trash is trash, bruh.
Capable.
But other than that, I just taking it easy today. Today's a quiet Wednesday.
Well, Sam.
Fighting the urge to play Genshin Impact. So far, so good.
I'm gonna give that game a shot. See what's the big fuss. But
I'm like, no, not today, not today, not today, not today. I'm like, maybe this once. Damn, wallet's gone.
Yep, and then you find like a huge hole inside your bank account for some apparent reason, trying to roll for a 5-star character. That happens. I mean, I think that's what happened to like Red Muffler Man too. Try to roll Diluc.
and then he got played.
He got a bunch of other 5-star characters. That's the funnier part about it too, but not Diluc.
Oh, okay, so Desire Center.
Yeah. Okay,
Yes,
so
the Desire Center.
Mhm.
Always the Desire Center. So let's go ahead and get on track then.
Yep, I might want to lay out the ground rules first. So, with this kind of roundtable discussion, we might want to keep things as a one mic. So, I guess I don't know what would be a good time frame for everybody to kind of hash out their ideas. I don't want to absolutely limit someone to discuss or explain themselves, reasoning, but to how they kind of action to a particular topic. Yeah, we might want to keep things at a one mic pace, and
All right, so try to make it to where we're not talking over each other. I got you.
yeah.
We can just do like sections like positives, negatives, ways to feel about this mechanic.
Oh yeah, we're gonna be going over all of that. It's just I think we just said instead of hopping around all over the place, we'll just focus on one of those topics at a time.
Okay.
Sure. So we're gonna go to start off with first impressions then. Well, I guess I'll start then. My first impression for Gundam Versus starts with how the game was announced. Um, I was actually pretty excited for it because of the fact that the game was going to be released. Not just not just be Japan only, but it was going to be a release in that. And I think Bandai Namco was asking, hey, would the Western audience be interested? And I remember me and a couple of others saying, hey, look, we'll buy the Japanese and the American version if you do that. So please do. And some of us kept our word. I did like the fact that the game was going to be a console based game from the ground up, because that made me think, what, if this succeeds and the game ends up going long term, then we'll be able to get, balancing, not to sound like a person who's complaining about top tiers or whatever, but that we'll be able to get balancing, that we'll be able to perhaps get DLC suits, things of that nature. So honestly, my first impression of the game was ultimately positive. Same thing gameplay wise. I was willing to give the questionable mechanics like strikers and boost dive a chance, because again, it was a game from the ground up. It was a game that was being released internationally. Um, it was positive and hopeful. That was my first. So yeah, I'm good there. What about you guys?
Well, I guess I'll go next. My first impression, I saw the trailer back when when it first released as well, but I don't really count that as a first impression because it's just a trailer. My first impression was my first impression was more when I was looking at the GVA's early beta that was when was it again? We first closed the beta. I don't remember when it was again. It was like April 2017 or something like that. And so I was looking Game Lab and I was like, okay. And then on the May 28th was when the first time the open beta started. It was a 48 hours open beta with all the characters. That's when I first actually played Gundam. And that was when I decided, okay, actually I do like this game. It's a bit complicated and doesn't make a lot of, the controls don't make a lot of sense. But I do like Gundam and I do like the suits that were already in, like in the beta. I was enjoying playing as them. So my game was pretty positive. So yeah, that's it for first impressions, at least for me.
Sorry, I kind of stepped away for a bit. Who went already?
Me and Densu went. So I don't know, maybe you're next.
All right, I guess.
Can you
I'll let Sloth and Geo go.
Okay, well, my first impressions was I was like very hyped for it because I was like, oh sweet, we finally got a versus game in the West. I didn't really like the name because I'm like, this is gonna be complicated to tell people because people just shorten it to Gundam Versus. Then there's like the Extreme Gundam Versus, which is I had to explain to multiple people it's not a sequel. It's a standalone game. Like they thought Gundam Versus came first, then Extreme Versus. But gameplay wise, when I first saw the strikers, I was really worried because I've played a lot of other fighting games like Marvel vs. Capcom, Tatsunoko vs. Capcom, and assists are very easy to break a game. And I was worried on like, okay, there's gonna be like there were hundreds of assists, and I thought there's gonna be 10 assists that people only use. But other than that, I was excited for it, and the first like with the beta in the first few weeks, I was really hoping that this game would just have a consistent player base.
Alright. So when I first when I first saw G Bosses, I was in the loop. With anything new about Gundam, and I tried the beta. I was actually excited for the beta. I actually bought a PS4 because of the beta. uh, I literally because at the time I was like I was in a hotel, right? So it's like um holy crap, a new Gundam one. I love Gundam. I always play Gundam. For boost and stuff. Um, so when I actually tried out the beta, it was okay. I like the new mechanics. I like the boost dive, and then at the time I didn't see that much of a problem with Striker. So my first impression was pretty good. You know, uh, I had fun. I was playing like the shuffle matches, and it was a good time. And that's all I have to say about this first impression.
Alrighty, so now to me, my first impression, I actually was kind of head over heels for the game. I mean, going from like full boost, playing a lot of that for a long period of time, felt like a breath of fresh air with new mechanics and whatnot, especially the boost dive and strikers. And when I tried the beta out for a good long while, no lie, I was actually staying. I don't think I stayed up, but I woke up as early as possible to catch the beginning of the beta.
Yeah, same.
Yep.
Oh yeah, I did that too.
Yep. I had to wake up. My parents were kind of concerned about why was I up so early.
I did that for
So
ambulance.
yeah, like it was like
At the time, I was living in a hotel room, so I phoned the PSG at 5 a.m. and and there was a new feature that you can put your headphones inside you can had the speakers on the headphones. I thought that was neat, so I was playing video games at 5 a.m. next to my parents. They never knew.
yeah. But my first impression, I felt like the game was very fast. It was very at times. Like I think in the beta the strikers weren't that much of an issue compared to like the full version. But yeah, I had some good memories of the first time of playing GVS.
Think about the strikers. I remember in the beta they only didn't have you didn't lock on strikers, so only like a few of them you were able to play with, right? So uh, like at one day have like 20 strikers, another day would be like 20, you know. So it didn't lock all of them at the same time, right?
Also, the big thing I
So
think the strikers was I think they were only ground suit strikers. There, I don't remember any like playable suits being as strikers that much in the beta, at least. That's why I think the strikers were like less OP in the beta because we had all the Gazasies, Jims, Zakus. You know, we had only gun suits as strikers. Nothing, massive.
Yeah, nothing to really shake the foundation.
no.
Okay, on
I
to
think
the
we've covered the first impressions. What will be the next topic then?
next expectations reality. Basically, it's the honeymoon period.
Hmm. I was expecting something like full boost, but going off in its own direction. But I was also kind of expecting something. I wasn't expecting it to really stray that far away. Honestly, the it's just like I believe it was Sloth Cakes who mentioned it about assists in Marvel vs. Capcom.
Hmm. Yeah.
The once you find an assist that's really good, then that's really gonna dictate how the game goes. Like if anybody here played Marvel vs. Capcom 2 or watched enough match videos of that,
I did.
you'll know. I mean, you'll know that, for example, one of the best, some of the best, some of the characters in the game, they're garbage when they're actually fighting. You specifically have them there because of their assist.
Yeah.
An example being Captain, like Captain Commando. Captain Commando comes in, you can't touch him. His can and his the move that he does where he punches the ground, the Captain Corridor. That move is just basically a no button. Because you just come in and it's just stop. Same thing with Ken's uppercut, which is invincible. Psylocke's side blade, which is also her uppercut. That one's also one of those where you can't really do anything about it. It's an invincible reversal, things like that. Where it just, the really good assist just made too much of an impact. Um, and then like I was expecting, a new game where where we were going to be able to get away from some of the problems that Full Boost had. One of the big problems, in my opinion, that Full Boost had was that the dominant suits were cut and dry. Wing Zero TV, Reborns, Quanta, but then Banshee Norn showed up and Banshee dominated for a little bit, and then FAU, Full Armor Unicorn showed up and that basically became top dog, and then Blitz and Sandrock came out and there you go. So I was hoping that we would have a little more variety, and personally, my reality was, at that time, I really preferred using lower cost suits. But because of just how expensive Boost Dive is when it comes to Boost, I never found myself really being able to use a low cost suit because I couldn't really do anything. If I do something and then do a Boost Dive, I'm basically overheating and getting creamed, you know? So I kind of found the reality was a bit harsh where a lot of strikers were useless, and then my preferred cost was useless. And then the other one that was really aggravating for me is, with the exception of Turn X, none of the suits that I played was in the game. Like Ambrabi wasn't in it, Versargo wasn't in it, Alex isn't in it, Zaku Tsukai wasn't in it. Um, like literally none of my suits that I actually play with any frequency were in the game. So that was especially rough. So I guess I did have some pretty. I wouldn't say I had high expectations. I think my expectations were pretty reasonable. But reality was pretty harsh.
Green.
Well, my expectations were. I don't know. I mean, my first game, I didn't really have any expectations. The only expectations I did have was a game to have split screen, which it didn't, and that kind of made me mad. But aside from that, I don't think I really had any expectations, so I couldn't really be disappointed by anything because I never played GVS. I didn't know that 50% of the full boost roster was in the game. I did not know that fact till way after. So I don't know.
Sloth.
Well, with my expectations for the game, a thing was with a roster, I was thinking, this game is going to be more marketed towards the overseas and try to get people from like other countries. So we might have a cast that's like much more to like the Toonami fan base. So we would get more G Gundam, more Wing, and things like that. And I went into the game thinking at least a majority of the Shuffle Alliance would be in it, but it turns out not even a single G Gundam was in it at launch. I was really confused on the roster. At the end, I did like some of the DLC, like the games and stuff, like Zeonic Front, the Mudrock, the White Dingo. I really liked them having like the niche roster and stuff. But a big thing was, also the assists. I went into and thinking, okay, nothing's too bad. But then things like the Kamaris Trooper, the X3 file log, the X1 whip, all that shenanigans, which got it got really annoying, especially the Cassatria. That boiled my blood. Just every few seconds, giant Jerobi. You just gave everyone a massive Jerobi. And one was like with the boost dive and strikers, the universal mechanic benefits some characters, like the perfect strike, which got nothing taken away. But characters who already had built-in assists in their kit had things taken away from them, which dampened them, while other characters just got a very big boost. But other than going into more things that we'll later talk about, those are my biggest, like, okay, this is what I thought, and after playing it for a bit, I'm like, oh, okay, this is how it's happening.
Up, Gio.
So my expectations was basically be able to play like Gundam at any time, because at the time Full Boost you could only play it like at like 9 p.m. I wanted to play Gundam anytime I wanted. You know, there will always be a lobby, or like at least the casual pool players able to jump in, ready to jump in anytime. Also, it was pretty fast paced, right? It was expecting the game to be fast paced, you know. Um, but the thing is, the game was just way too broken with the strikers. Uh, I it just didn't. I wanted the game to be enjoyable with my expectations. But it ended up being really not fun when everyone's spam strike wars. And I think during the time the G Versus period, I tried to take the game more seriously, but when everyone was doing strike wars all the time, it really disheartened. You know, made the game a little bit less fun. So I was expecting a really fun game I could hop in anytime, at the end it just didn't become fun.
Right. Perspective. My expectations, I kind of expected the game to be a little bit more well-rounded to some degree. Mainly because of the strikers, how it kind of gave some advantages to certain suits that didn't have, had some like glaring weaknesses or anything of the sort. And I also kind of felt like in some situations, the balance was alright before the DLC. But I guess after playing it for roughly 2+ years, I felt like the game became much more aggressive as time went on. That the strikers didn't really as much of a waste the entire set of them were. Only a few you actually pick from the litter that were viable, both in the competitive and probably high level settings. I felt like tracking in general was weaker than the EXVS game, where you had to be forced to close a distance in order to at least have a fighting chance. Like when I started playing the game, I was with I played mostly like Slave Wraith. But then the more that I noticed how weak his kit was due to the very weak tracking that he had in his entire kit, it started to push me more towards more aggressive suits like Perfect Pack, Perfect Pack, and I think a few others that had a bit more varied offense. Most of the time, it just felt very, very in your face rather than the kind of range game that the XVS games were pretty much known for. So the reality that really hit me the most, I think, was probably like the midway point, maybe like year one. Yes, it was in tournament of Super TSB that things started to kind of click. That's the kind of game that it became. That's the kind of game that was, I think it was meant to be close range, in your face game that really pushed people to be as aggressive as possible with hits. And all in all, whoever had the better mobility, better base mobility, can pretty much dictate the entire meta at that point. That's why characters like Nightingale, Age 1, Silver Sumo, that's why they thrived. Even Epion. Epion was probably the strongest he's ever been before EXVS 2. Yeah, that's pretty much kind of feel as the reality of it.
Mm,
Okay.
something that covers that. What's the next topic?
And the likes and dislikes.
I think we're gonna start with. I think we should just start with just straight up likes first because I feel like once we open the floodgates of dislikes,
Yeah.
it's gonna be unstoppable.
Yeah, it's gonna be a torrent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got a lot to say there was
So
dislikes.
Yeah, so we'll start with likes first.
I think the game, honestly, looking back at it, the game did look better than the previous iteration of the game, and I still stand by that. I'll even go to say that it actually, I believe it. I feel the models actually look better in Gundam Versus than they do in Mbon, personally.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Now, the other thing I will say that was to its benefit is, as much as we all love Site 7, Gundam Versus had more maps that were actually usable um, than Full Boost / EX Versus. There were actually more maps, in my opinion, that we can use. Now, the other thing that I will say, and I honestly do, and I would actually like that they add to EX Versus 2 is strikers. No, I'm kidding. The I actually want them to add the sort of kind of other radar that you have. Like you have your radar on the top left, I think it is top right, but then towards the middle of the screen, you had like this other sort of kind of radar thing where it would have like dots indicating your opponents. So that was actually I actually liked that. I thought that was kind of cool. It didn't obstruct my vision. So I thought it was actually very nice. So I do hope that they add that again, into a later version of either M-Bond or EX versus 2. I thought that was actually a very nice addition. I'm honestly halfway when it comes to Striker. Because some of the strikers I actually did like. For example, I'm referring specifically to the ones that were, I guess you can say, fair. So for example, the 08th MS Team's hover truck. I know I kind of meme on it, Blue, but I do honestly feel that assist was actually not half bad because it was spammable and you can kind of use it, do an attack, I guess cross them up and do it again. I thought it was actually really, really good in that respect. It was a bit of a niche, but it was kind of nice. I also did like when I played Turn Next, I did like the GOG assist. The GOG assist on the GOG would appear just about above you, and it would do like a shotgun blast. Like think the Sazabi's shotgun blast, which I think was a CSA. So it would basically do that. And it was actually really good for self defense. So I mean, even though strikers were mostly polarizing, the ones that were decent and not OP, I actually did like them. Now, I kind of get where they were going with the universal mechanics. I think overall, I will actually say that I did like Boost Dive. This might be a little controversial. I did like Boost Dive. However, it does come with a caveat. I do think that it should have been modified. I think instead of it being what it was, which I believe was a flat cost that ultimately hurt the low cost suits, I think it should have been a specific percentage of your boost. Like that, it would have allowed the lower cost suits to actually use it effectively. The other thing I did like a lot about, the thing I liked the most about Gundam Versus, actually, I thought 3v3 was fun, if not serious. I also did like the way that you do arcade mode, where you're doing the little arcade run and everything, and you can power up your suits with like different stats and everything. But
That's not a penalty.
the thing I thought was actually pretty interesting in it was how when you get the bonus stages would add you with the community. So if you have like if let's say if all of us were playing arcade mode, then they would put us all up against like a big boss, and then one of us at random would be the boss character, like the Big Zam or something. So I thought that was actually kind of cool. Um, and then there would be another one where we'll take three of us and do like a little competition to see who can kill the most mooks. I thought that was actually kind of cool, and it kind of broke up it kind of gave you a bit of a breather when you're playing arcade mode and kind of to mix in. I think it was a good way to take beginners, either to the game or to the franchise as a whole, and kind of handhold them into the main point of Gundam Versus, which is the PvP aspect. I thought that was actually very well done. And I actually liked it a lot. I thought that was probably one of the coolest ideas that they did, and I thought it was executed decently enough. And it's something that was actually done with frequency, where I got matched up with players to do that, as opposed to say M-Bond right now, where like ranked is dead half the time. Or let's not even talk about how if I want to do an arcade run, I have to specifically tell somebody, hey, let's play arcade. To do arcade. If I go try to match up with somebody at random, I'm never going to get anybody. So I think that was definitely a positive there. I do think it was cool that they didn't just copy paste certain suits. Turn X definitely played differently than it did in Full Boost, for example. They did give it, then you move the Garobi. And that also does apply to how they made for some of the DLC suits like God Gundam and Master Gundam different enough. And I do think also another thing I did like too was when you have these suits. Let's say the original Grandpa Gundam, for example. In the anime, the Grandpa Gundam was piloted by more than one person. So if you don't want to hear Amuro, you can switch to Ryu Jose, or you can switch to somebody else. So if a suit had multiple different pilots, you can switch to that other pilot, and it would be voiced by that pilot. I thought that was actually really really cool, and I was kind of hoping that they would do that in M Bond slash EX versus 2, but no, I guess not. I think I kind of covered everything as far as what I did like. I do think that some of the new suits that were added were interesting enough. I did like that they did give some grunt suits a chance to have some shine, like the Methus, the Nemo, the Rick Diaz, etc. That was kind of cool instead of it just being the the Ace Customs or the Pro Tag suits. So I think there was plenty of positive in the game, personally.
I think to probably do a bit of a correction, it's the Ultimate Survival you were talking about.
Yeah, that's fine.
Arcade.
The weapon?
Ultimate Survival.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. You're talking about Ultimate Survival. My bad. Thank you.
And that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Next up, Green.
Well, I did really, as Denso said, I did like the Grand Suits a lot. I actually pretty much exclusively played the Grand Suits. In GVS, I had a lot of fun with the GNX, Isaac, Rick Diaz, Nemo, Gapfly, just a whole bunch of the 200 and some of the obscure 300 car suits. I love the fact Rambo was in the game with his goof, even though he sucks ass. But I did like him a lot in that game. And I did like also this Royal mode, extra game mode, but the only problem, I'll actually gave that 3 dislikes. I did like those modes, my favorite mode in that was the free-for-all one, because it was just such chaos. But I never got to play that online, I never got matched with people, because obviously I did not have a US account at the time, so I pretty much only played against bots. I only ever found a person in that mode, so. And what else did I like? Well, man, I think that's it. I I did like because I was still a new player. I didn't exactly have that much, perspective at the time. Now I have lots of perspective, but I was thinking at the time of playing the game, I really didn't really think about it that much. I wasn't able to play online, so I can't really talk about that because back then I had even worse internet than I do now. I literally could not play the game online until I think November 2017. So for the first couple of months, I didn't even play the game online. Pretty much exclusively played the arcade mode, survival mode, and free battle. And well, the only thing I did like about arcade mode was the beta arcade route. That was my favorite route in the game, and I'm kind of mad it's not in the final release, but I'll keep that. I'll talk about that more in this list. Now I'm done.
Both, you're up next.
Well, first is the single player. I liked Gundam Versus single player a lot more than Maxi. A lot more than MBO1. MBO1's got like the branch battle, which is better than Gundam Versus, but besides that, you only got like Maxi Mission, and Maxi Mission is fun. It's got like the funny shenanigans and stuff with the very weird battles, but Gundam Versus had boss rush. It had the survival thing where every 5 waves you'd fight a boss and you could upgrade your suit. That was just like really cool. Or it had this like weird branch battle. I just thought the single player was like better, mostly because I really wanted a boss rush. Like I was very excited to play boss rush in MBON, but that's not in it. You could kind of bootleg it, but
Yeah.
I wanted like an official mode. But other than that, I did like the aesthetic a little more, where you could go to your suit, click on it, and there's its unlockables instead of scrolling through like 250 various things just to find your one tag that you want for that one mobile suit. But onto like the mobile suits and stuff. While the cast was smaller, I did like some of the choices. I do like the gun suits, like you said, but I do like the video game choices they chose as well, like Zeonic Friends. We got the the GS Zaku 1 Commander. We got the Mudrock. We had the Efreet DS, the Slave Wraith, the Pale Rider, and the Pale Rider then got Extreme Versus 2. I'm hopeful that maybe some of these suits get into Extreme Versus 2. Well, like in the future, will be like cross boost and stuff. And I did like some of the other grunt suits, like the Goof and the Gun Tank. We didn't get a Hildolfer, but I felt like the Gun Tank was a nice counterpart to that. I hope we got. I was wishing we got like more UC grunt suits. Well, like since we already, I thought the 8 guy was gonna be in it, or just some other, just more grunt like suits throughout it. But that was still fine. I also did like not the point of the DLC, like how it was cost and stuff, but I like the idea that they had DLC, that it was a character, it was a name tag, the emblem, and a new assist, stuff like that. That whole concept I liked. How they delivered it was different, but I like the idea of it. It kept the game fresh and stuff. But some things I liked, also, the changes to mobile suits, some of it was nice. I like experimenting. Like they brought the RX-78, the Queebly, the O, and I can't think of any others that they brought up a cost for that game. I just thought was a nice choice. So like they just want to experiment on something or change things up. But other than that, that's the big things that I liked overall from Gundam Versus.
Geo?
Alright, so to get it off, I do like Boost Dive as a mechanic. I know someone with Boost Dive, even though I do play low. I do mean like low cost suits, like 1.5 200s. The Boost Dive, I didn't have a problem with it. Next was the. I forgot what it's called. It was the overall vibe. Like it felt like it's a type of like the 1v1 and 3v3 modes. Those type of modes. It was a good break from the standard 2v2. Especially when the 3v3 was like everyone was on wild and everyone had really good connection. That was a blast, and it felt really satisfying playing that type of mode. Next is other than that, there was. I'm trying to think because G-Force is not really like my cup of tea because at this time, I was getting more competitive. I just basically just like how casual it feels, basically, from the usual mode. And that's it.
As far as my likes go, I did actually like some of the roster choices in the game. So I kind of gravitated towards like the front suits, mostly from Missing Link. I'd say also like how some of the suits definitely felt much more different. Some did have like similar movesets from like Full Boost, so it felt very familiar. But the addition of Boost Dive was nice so far. Just being able to fast fall at will was a very powerful tool to have. I could also probably say the DLC, what in some aspects was pretty nice, the way it was introducing some other suits. But that's pretty much it about that. And I guess the single player content was definitely the strongest suit of GVS as a whole. And another thing that I also liked from GVS was the player lobby rankings. You know how there was like a separation between the ranked matches and the player matches. It kind of rewarded people whoever played the longest or whoever played very frequently. They had like a special kind of ranking to them. So if they're a beginning player, they would have like a rookie tag or a civilian tag, as opposed to those that play like religiously. They would have like either ace or grandmaster. So it kind of allowed for a bit of indication of those who are relatively new to the game and those are just fairway players. Those that don't really play as often still have enough experience in order to function as a certain indicator. So I like that ability to distinguish between who's the regular player and who isn't. Because I'll be honest, Max Boost, the reason why I feel like it would never be able to fix its rank matchmaking is because there's no way to tell if the person is truly a beginner player or an expert player. Most of the people just end up like farming matches in player lobbies and then just hop on in, dominate as expected, and SSDD. But what GVS did there, where it was just capable of giving a bit of a good indication, is ideal. And some of the strikers I did have a bit of fun with. I've also like, even when people were just messing around with Kshatriya assists, I was kind of messing around with like Shokyu, which had like a 1-2 stun attack. There's also some of the melee ones like the Jin, which you could summon like 5 times. I guess as time went on, people started using a bit oddball assist in spite of what was the stronger ones at station. Drazen Striker. Oh man. We're gonna get to that soon enough. And by soon enough, I mean now. We're gonna move on to the dislikes. And
one more thing I wanted to say about that.
yeah,
Actually, one thing. I think one of you guys mentioned it too. I kind of wouldn't mind if they added some of the suits from Versus to like EX Versus 2. I'm pretty bad with melee suits, but I really liked the Ifrit Schneid. Like that was one of the few melee suits that I really really gelled with. But now for the part everyone's probably waiting for, the dislikes.
oh, I think
I'm gonna have to start with what AKA Genesis said. Don't forget that you actually pay more than buying the game a second time for the DLC. I think the DLC model.
Oh yeah, I was saying. I think it was
No,
like
you're not even.
$120 in total.
jeez,
Yeah,
what?
the DLC model was horrible.
Yep.
The DLC model was straight up horrible. I don't remember how many of the suits ultimately ended up being useless, which makes it worse. I do, in its defense, just like somebody mentioned, it did come with titles. It did come with the suit. It did come with a striker. But regardless, it was way too expensive. Did this game have a pre-order suit?
Yes, it was Hot Scramble.
It was Hot Scramble, if I'm mistaken, right?
I forgot about that.
So the game had a DLC suit that was pre-order only. This suit, to this day, is still not available for players.
It isn't?
It isn't.
I'm not mistaken.
Yep, it isn't.
It is not available.
I bought the game one day after it was released, right? And I still don't have the suit.
So that right there, that is a huge no-no. Especially because, if I'm not mistaken, that suit was also one of the better suits in the game.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Top tier. Yeah, top tier.
So
500.
it's not like EXS, which was a DLC exclusive for like a long time in full boost, that eventually became available, and even then, at least it wasn't top tier. Ugly ass suit. Shut up, Blue.
Shut up. No, you shut up.
No, but like I said, the DLC was a big mistake in my opinion. And like I said, even though I did like the idea of strikers, unfortunately, it still comes out as overall. And I did give it its props when I was talking about likes, but I still have to hit it in the dislike section. One too many. We had how many assists in total? How many strikers?
Oh god.
Like, we had more. We had more.
I think it was like 260 or something. It was
So-
high.
So we have we have a crap load of strikers. A majority of these strikers were not playable suits. That's one. A majority, excuse me, not even an overwhelming majority of these assists were bad. You know, that was another big issue. So in other words, all of these assists that just end up being useless. That is time that could have been spent on the game to make it better. So I have to knock it. And then again, when we even go into that further, and even then when we go further into that issue, even though I used the hover truck and I used the GOG assist, I am positive none of you used those assists, except maybe Blue once, just to appease me when I was running my mouth about how good the assist actually was. It was a meme. So when it came down to it, everybody and their mom used the assists that were stupid. Everybody used Kimara's Trooper. Everybody used everybody used everybody for DuckTales. You may as well just play that. Yo, Blue, you may as well play that music now. You may as well just play that music now on the stream. Honestly, like we should just have like a Kimara's Trooper just flying around on the screen right now with the thing right now. But like everybody and their mom ran Kimara's Trooper, and then it was X1 assist. And then I forgot what was the other ones that were really, really good. It was X1.
X3, DO.
X1 was the whip, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
X1 was the whip. Kimara's Trooper was DuckTales. And then X3 was the one that tosses the fire thing that throws two of them. So it throws two of them. Yeah. So it throws two of them, and if I'm not mistaken, you had to step for each one.
Yeah.
And if it hits you, and if it hits you, you're stunned for like forever. And then you also have Kshatriya assist, which was also really, really, really good. So
Gun Tank, when it came
Gun
out.
Tank was strong, the beginning.
But
So strikers were a big issue. The DLC model was not very good. And then one of the best suits in the game was literally unavailable for the entire player base if you did not purchase the game, if you did not pre-order, which is just insane. So those were my main issues. I don't remember if the top tier was really locked in, like it was in Full Boost. But the only one I really remember off the top of my head that was really good was Hot Scramble. Everything else really just came down to, like some people complained about Virtue. Like I hated Virtue because it corrected so damn good with its beams, and even those beams hurt.
Yeah.
But ultimately, if you knew what you were doing, you could handle them. But like, other than Hot Scramble and Nightingale and H2, I think those are the ones that were really like obnoxious. It was H1. Hot Scramble, Nightingale, H2, and also H1 because of Sparrow.
Yeah.
So. Oh wait, I'm sorry. I need to correct myself. I forgot to mention the other thing I liked a lot about Gundam Versus. Let me just touch on that real quick. The burst system in this game was really good. I liked it because of the fact that when you burst, it gave your partner a buff. I thought that was another one of those things that was really, really good. And my striker jokes aside, that's one mechanic I sincerely hope that gets into EX Versus 2. But I've been told that that's kind of what the linkage burst already does. But those are really my main complaints when it comes to Gundam Versus. I think the balance was generally okay, except for a few outliers. Again, H1, H2, Nightingale, I remember Nightingale was really, really obnoxious. And then Hot Scramble, which was, again, unavailable if you didn't pre-order the game. The DLC model was no good. There was too many bad strikers, which is, again, one of the biggest issues I have with Marvel vs. Capcom. Like, let me go on a bit. Let me explain why. One thing I don't like when it comes to games that have a large cast, okay? Anybody who plays the game, who plays a competitive game seriously, is going to go to the point where we're going to establish the pecking order. We're going to establish which shoots are good, which shoots are weak, which ones are strong, etc., which ones are busted, yada yada yada. That's just a natural order of things. You can complain about a suit being overpowered, but at the end of the day, this isn't like Street Fighter where you're going to be locked down by execution requirement. This game, execution is not that hard for a lot of things in the game. So there's really not that much of an excuse when it comes to an execution barrier. You know, you can play the strong suits too. The thing is that this is worse when it comes to strikers. Like, anybody here play Marvel vs. Capcom 3?
Yeah.
All right.
Oh,
So
yeah,
let me
wow.
ask you something. In Marvel vs. Capcom 3, tell me of a good assist besides the following: Hangar Lariat, anything from Doom, anything from Dante.
I think there was the trombone assist in Vanilla, where it was actually invincible.
The slider
And
tracking.
Mm-hmm. So
And Berserker Barrage.
that's about.
Berserker,
That's
Virgil's
so.
rapid slash. Just gotta remember.
All right. Because that one crosses up, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that was
No.
really
Gene. Okay, Gene. I'm gonna stop you right there. All of Dante's assists were good. It's just that Jam Session was clearly the best one.
Oh yeah, Jam Session was amazing.
Crystal had its uses. Okay, Crystal had its uses, and believe it or not, Weasel Shot actually had its uses too. It's just that, again, Jam Session was dominantly his best one. So my thing is this. So my thing is this. I feel if you're going to put content in the game, you should. If the content is simply going to be padding, get rid of it. Cut and dry. Because in Marvel vs. Capcom, I'm gonna be aggressive and say this. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was actually a lazily made game. Okay? The game was lucky to be what it was. Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was good, was well designed, but they should have taken the time to make the assists better. The same thing applies here. They had too many assists that were not good, and they should have just cut them out. Like, for example, one of the assists in the game is the same exact plane, the Sky Grasper, I think, from Seed. One of them, and it's basically those things, each one having the different packs that the striker that Strike Gundam uses. You know, nobody uses those. So it's like, if you're that was my biggest thing. If they would have cut those out, if they would have cut the useless assists out, that would have made the game that would have been something that people would have complained less about. Right? Now, the other issue, even though there are some suits that I do like that they added, for example, the grunt suits and everything, I still have to complain. Why did you not include War in the Pocket? War in the Pocket is one of the Gundam franchises, most like series. So the fact that one was missing from the cast, by my bias aside, was really strange to me. And if I'm not mistaken, let me think, what else wasn't added? GP01 and GP02 were in it. They added the Gym Custom. They added the Gym Cannon 2. Those were kind of nice additions. But it's like, where's Resargo? Where's Gundam Double X? Why does Setsuna only have Exia? Even though I know we meme about Setsuna having a bazillion suits in EX Versus 2. I thought that's the ones that were missing, I thought were very, very strange choices. Like, I don't think there was any excuse for that. And the other one that was a complaint that I feel is a complaint too is, you mean to tell me that we have God Gundam and Master Gundam in EX Versus, and we're gonna make it a DLC suit in Gundam in a new game? Really? That right there was a bad move. What they should have done, I think Master Gundam and God Gundam should have been in the game by default, and one of the new suits that were added into the game should have been DLC. That would have been a better look. And like I said earlier, previously, my last complaint was again Boost Dive being a equal cost to all the suits, and I felt that punished the lower cost suits. And I feel that that's why when I played mostly, I rarely saw 200s. Everybody was literally running 400s and 500s. 200s and 300s, I almost never saw them. It was literally just 500s, 400s all day. So it's those were the ones that I thought were really but if I had to pick out of all of them what I thought was the worst, was the biggest insult, definitely the DLC model. Like y'all goofed up with that, Bandai. Y'all goofed up royally, and there's honestly no excuse at all. I would actually go as far as to say that the biggest issue that they did was that one. I'm also gonna give a special "What the hell is wrong with you?" Lord, if you talk about versus Force again, we're gonna have to ban you. Thanks. We don't talk about that. I also have to give a giant "What the hell were you guys thinking?" when it comes to the noodle map. That map is horrible. That is easily the worst map in any competitive game I've ever played. Whoever thought to add the freaking macaroni map, the big noodle map? I forget the name of that map.
Colony Laser.
Is it the one with the yellow pillars?
Colony Laser.
Yes, the what?
Was bad.
That map was atrocious. That map was just, oh my lord, that map was awful.
A few other.
But yeah, those are really my main complaints. Just to recap, the DLC model was horrible. The missing suits there's no excuse for those missing suits. The amount of assists was excessive, and it hurt the game's balance. To their credit, they did fix those issues with the bad assists, cutting down the uses and etc. But still, too much content that ended up being ultimately worthless. That's a waste of development time that could have been spent making the game better. So yeah.
Alright, up next, Green.
Okay, well, one of the biggest problems, I'm going to focus on the single player because I didn't play much of the online, so I cannot really commentate on that. But my biggest problem is that the actual arcade mode was fucking bullshit, and the game actually cheats by giving the enemies in like round 9 and 10 actual attack and defense buffs, meaning it's completely unfair. And it also means on some stages, like I think like stage in round 9 is like the 34th stage, like AEX, whatever, the G-Rico stage. That stage is actually unwinnable. I cannot beat that stage. It is actually unwinnable stage in that game. It's ridiculous that the arcade mode actually really pisses me off, especially since my favorite arcade route in that game was the beta one, which isn't in the game, and also really hate the fact that the arcade mode didn't make a lot of like thematic sense. The first route was exclusively 0079. Second one was 0079 again, except there's 2 C stages. And his third stage was like FMS 083 and I think more 0079. Yeah, and missing links. That's right, missing links. Basically more side stories. Then yeah. That's enough about the arcade mode. Another big problem that I had was I think while I did like the surround mode a lot, the problem with surround was that it did feel like your defense upgrades weren't like high enough at like level 50. Even if you had like max upgrades, the enemies were still doing like a lot of damage to you, which I really didn't like. Like if you bought no upgrades, like defense upgrades, somehow made it to and somehow made it to A50, you were taking like 300 damage, like 200 damage from a single beam rifle shot. Basically, it was pretty ridiculous how the scaling was implemented in that mode, and the fact that in free battle you only had 4 slots, even though you could put it so there's 3 people one team and then 1 person on the other team. You cannot do 6v6 in free battle. I didn't like that. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense why we weren't allowed to do that, especially since if you play survival mode and you get that, it works just fine. So yeah, another thing like that didn't like. I just didn't like the fact that a lot of the grunt suits were literally copy paste. How many and that 300 200 suits introduced in GVS literally had beam saber toss as one of the moves. Like a decent amount of them had that, and because of that, not were like lots samey. There weren't many fun gimmicks. All the lower class suits. And a lot of suits were annoying in that game, at least for top tiers. The Wing Zero TV was really good in every single game, but he's good here, which is fine. But Hot Scramble at release with its literally undodgeable funnels, that was really fun.
Yeah.
And with Nightingale having just really good, Masala being really annoying, literally the best zoner in like GV in Versus history. Cannot name a better zoner. Literally CSA missiles put them into AC, CSA into AC, infinite missiles, and the Age 1 being the only 300 that was actually any good basically in the game. A lot of 300s were not any good, they were all just so subpar and average or just simply bad, like the Goof. And yeah, I know, what else did I want to say? I guess really that's it, except, actually the biggest fucking thing is stupid ass PSN account region locking. That means that EU players only can play with other, like, if I have, like, for example, my main account is obviously a Croatian PSN account, guess what? I'm the only Croatian that plays Gundam Versus. If I send to local, searching, like, for player match or casual match, it will never ever find anyone. Meaning you basically, you want to play future, if you live in the EU, you have to create a US account. You don't have a choice if you want to, like, actually find more than just worldwide lobbies. That's like the biggest thing about this game. Jesus Christ, how did they not fix that in M1? I will never know. But yeah, I'm done.
Yep, Sloth.
Well, for dislikes, one was, 3v3 was neat, and it was fun to mess around. What 3v3 brought was larger than normal maps, and when you played a 2v2 in those large maps, it was very hard to chase some suits, especially if they were higher cost or they were just a natural keep away suits. The large maps were very annoying to maneuver, like Thunderbolt sector. That's a large map, and it's practically just flat. It's just besides the buildings, which would eventually get destroyed, it was practically a flat map. There was that beach level, which didn't have that much to it, besides like the middle mountain. But it was a very large map that it was very easy to get split apart or for someone to run away. That's a thing I did dislike a lot. Another thing was just it was the cast. I liked like I said, like the video game suits and stuff like that, but I did not understand why they didn't put things like War in the Pocket, a overall very liked Gundam series that people recommend to people who haven't watched the Gundam, and that is one of the OVAs that did appear on Toonami. I didn't understand why they didn't put that in. I don't understand why there wasn't really like Endless Waltz, considering it is Gundam Wing. I was very surprised. Like I was very surprised when there was no God or Master Gundam on launch, because I thought they would miss. Because it was in full boost. I'm like, where? What are you guys doing? I'm like, what? Why wasn't like this game is coming to the West? Why wouldn't you bank on that? That's what like people remember a lot was the G fighters. So I was thinking, oh, maybe they'll just put it like a bunch of them and like introduce like some of the shuffle alliances. And no, the Maxwell Gundam, which I was thinking was going to be in it, got into Extreme Versus 2. So I felt like they messed up a lot on the cast. They could have done that a lot better. Well, I do like some of the suits. I have to agree that there are a lot of suits that feel samey. There's a lot of suits that have the basically the GPO-1 barrel roll shooting, where it just barrel rolls and shoots a lot. There was a lot of moves which were like it's BC and it was a counter, which I felt like was a big waste of a button. There was also the beam saber toss where I felt like there was a lot of suits that could have different weapons that they just gave them the generic, okay, put this in there, okay, let's get to the next mobile suit. And let me see.
Shooting guard rush.
Yeah, that strikers as well. I gotta. There was a lot with the just because if you burst, you got your strikers back. That was. I found that very annoying. And if your teammate was using shooting bursts, you got your strikers back again. And I really wanted people to just like there was a bunch of strikers and stuff that could be with combos because I would play a game and I still remember it because someone was meleeing me. They dashed out mid combo. I'm like, okay. They call in the turn A and the turn A finishes the assist. It does a good amount of damage and it's fast and it finishes the assists for you. Or they do Don Zaku 2 to finish the combo. And I was like, oh, that's really creative tech. But later on, it just becomes okay. Well, let's just run the Banshee, or just run the Cassatria, or the Sonanju barrel roll. It's you don't need the assist, which I was really hoping that people would just think of something like that, but it wasn't worth it at the end. But for major dislikes, that's most, and obviously the DLC being paid the $120 worth. That was, ugh. Besides that, yeah, that's the major dislikes.
Geo, you're up.
Yeah. So at this time, I was trying to take the Gundam seriously, more seriously than I did in the past. And there's a lot of issues with this particular game. Let's start with the launch window. The Japanese got it for us 6 months before the US got it. I was able to get most people just got the Japanese release when the hardcore people, they got it 6 months, a 6 month head start, basically. Like most people that was hardcore got 6 months head start. And I just didn't see that fail. Because the US release was like a lot later. Oh, okay. Anyways, other than that, let's start with the fundamental. Why this game is not really competitive at all? Like anything below 400 costs is absolutely useless in this game. As someone that mains like 1Ks and 2Ks and full boost, they will in this game, 2Ks are basically the 300 costs. It's basically a glorified 1.5, 150. It's basically a 1.5K. If you get like my thing, it doesn't feel like it. 300 does not feel like a 2K cost equivalent, right? It feels like a less so just a slight upgrade to 200 cost. It does not feel its cost, right? So 300 cost is for most part is basically useless in any meta relevancy. So that left was 400 and 500. I wasn't too keen at 500, 400, 500s. Like I really didn't like 2.5k costs and the 3k cost. I learned how to that was the 3k cost, but the 2.5k cost, like the 400 cost, basically, I don't like. Those suits do not vibe with me. So I hate that. Like we only have two costs, basically, if you want to win at all, you have a chance of winning. Now let's get to the strike horse. The strike horse. Basically, you have a chance. You'll get Kshatriya, or Kshatriya. Basically, what's the strike horse? Like it was and the strike horse came out so fast. Like you get two free strike horse, and it came out so fast that like even if you attempt to push someone, they would have a striker out on your ass. Like the strikers came out way too fast, and there was like no punishment for it. Right? It's just basically a free knockdown. Well, what is it? The marketing for this game was wholly bad. Bandai did a terrible job. Was this the scene, the competitive scene? They did one Evo promotion and then dropped the game forever. Like once like Master, I think when after Master came out, they dropped the game. Like they say, we're not working this game. Screw this community. We're going on. We're moving on. No support. No more support.
Yeah, it was really abrupt too.
Yeah. Also, let's talk about the community. I think at this point, community got really split. Like it's either you stick with GVS or go to Fubus during the middle of the community during this game's life cycle. You know, the community got really split at this game because most people like I was like one of the people that went back to Fubus, bought PS3, went back to Fubus, and played G Versus occasionally. Because this game did split the community. Like that. It's basically, I gotta say, this game reminds me of like how Brawl, Super Smash Bros. Brawl is. It had that game split the community, right? That game was basically you go back to Melee or you play Brawl. So I don't know why I did that. Now let's get to the maps. My opinion, I do not like how the maps are in this. Do not like how the maps. Like, there's no standard map. Like, I don't like there's like no one competitive map and everyone plays that. Right? I mean, there is basically, I think it was Neo Hong Kong, but that map is it's way too big. These maps are way too big for what the game is. Like the grand scale of these maps, because they had to implement 3v3 and that seemed that they had to make that fail. So that's how that did. Also, I feel that this game taught a lot of bad fundamentals. It taught people how you could just rush in without consequences, and that's not how Gundam is. You have to play as a team, right? You have to play. You have to play. You have to notice your partner, right? If you don't play as a team, you're not gonna win the game, right? it didn't feel that it was a team game. It was more. It feel like spam strike or go in ham GG. Like um map scan. I think other than that, it's the tutorial mode could have been done a lot better for newer players. At least there is a tutorial mode in this game, opposed to Maxi on, basically. But you know, it just I don't know. This game, in my opinion, it's kind of hard to introduce this game to newer players, but they should have handled it a lot better than like the tutorial mode. Um. Oh yeah, the room lobby system is trash. Like basically they have like how they separate by like um beginners only, intermediate, casual, extreme play, worldwide. They have all these settings, but most people only use like one setting, like worldwide, extreme play. That's it. If they put anything else, then people cannot find your room. So even if you want to get a beginner room started, you have to like find other outlets. What are you saying? I thought he was saying something. Um, the room structural was pretty bad. The local structural, how it is like local. I really don't like that. Even Maxi Boost, um, like it separates people by country except by region, right? So, um, I had people playing Canada, but they want to do a local match. So they set up a local, but I can't play with them because they're in Canada, right? So they should just do NA, like, they should just do by continent, something like that, but by region. But instead of like by country, I don't know why they did it by country for a local, but I need
Because Japan.
just play worldwide, I guess. That's why everyone playing. That's why everyone sets the thing to worldwide, even the Maxion, because the local thing is not really that good. Because people want to play their buddies from Canada. I have a lot of people that connect well with, but the local setting is not that good. Um, I think the connection stability was kind of awful in G Versus. The connection was uh some the teleconnection was like really bad. Like someone could have Greenbor, but you won't know they're on Wi-Fi. So hopefully with this new update coming around with Naxion with the Wi-Fi indicator that could fix that. But like in G Versus, that it's much harder to tell if somebody's on Wi-Fi. You can't tell if somebody's on Wi-Fi and high poor connections because how the netcode is. The Wink system, I don't like. I mean, I can't really complain about Wink that much because I didn't play much of it. Just like I think after a few days it was dead. Um, I forgot to turn up over this, but I do in the like section. I forgot about this. I'm gonna talk about this real quick. I do like the casual play, the casual mode, in, in that thing. The casual mode, you could just jump into a match anytime. But at the same heel, you cannot jump into a 2v2 or 3v3 at any time. It has to be a 1v1. Because 2v2 and 3v3, casual mode, they died pretty quickly. Um, so I think Bennett has still has an issue promoting a game like this, but um, I think that's all I have to say. Like, fun as a someone that was trying to get to competitive mode in this game, there was too much to handle with the competitive aspect that most competitive people just ended up going to Fubu's when around this game's life cycle. Alright.
Oh, I'll just close my door real quick because it's gonna be hold on. Where do I even begin with mine? Okay. Let's start. So, I guess the first thing I probably should have down, I wrote all this down, but while I did like how the game kind of looked very clean, the way that it looked after a certain point just felt very drab. The UI was probably the cleanest that it ever looked. There was nothing too intrusive or nothing that seemed too distracting. It's just a simple your health, your partner's health, all the other stuff right then and there. But I wish there was like a little bit more options in order to like you gussy it up, just give it a different color or whatnot. The GP system, the fact that they did away with the rental system that was in full boost is quite the dumbest thing they've ever done. The way you could actually test out DLC suits in player lobbies if it was allowed, and it was like the try before you buy, on if anything else. The fact that they did away with that not only made the GP system a little bit invalid after you've cleared roughly everything that's on the content scale, it just feels like you're just racking up points for no reason. It just becomes like a daily ticker. Even if you have like around like maxed out the entire point system, it still feels like it's just a placeholder. The as far as like game balance goes, it kind of mirrors exactly what Geo said, where a lot of the suits didn't feel like their respective costs. Some of them felt like 1.5, some of them felt like 1Ks, some of them felt like 500s. But there was a clear disparity between certain suits that had a lot of high mobility that were able to close the distance relatively quickly, or was able to control space and control the entire flow of the match without even have to bat an eye, like Nightingale. As soon as he has burst, he is instantly the biggest threat on the map. And if you have no means in order to counter that, you're going to get hit with the super from across the screen. Hot Scramble, his funnels when he was first released was absolutely stupid because they retracted every step of the way. They had the most aggressive tracking possible. And I think Age 1 Sparrow, the entire game mechanics benefited him the most. Because he was able to use BC to kind of zip around and boost dive as fast as possible before it gets his boost back, so he could do the same thing again, just practically close the distance relatively safely. But I think the major thing I also want to go back to is like the tracking of the overall tracking of the game, because it felt like you could not only break tracking easily, but also it felt like some range attacks were not really worth using. Having a ranged playstyle was not worth having at all, unless if your attacks had like a lot of lingering hitboxes or whatnot to kind of control the flow. You were at the mercy of those that can close the distance and do as much damage as possible with less resources than expected. As far as roster goes, it is questionable at best. The fan favorite suits that everybody enjoyed from like Full Boost and probably from like previous games beyond Full Boost. The fact that they omitted them and even like G Gundam of all things is repackaged as a DLC suit and as DLC suits is just preposterous. I like the fact that they include the grunt suits, but at the same time, it felt like they were like little fish in a big pond. And as more DLC suits came out, the balance was pretty much made apparent by how aggressive the meta became, how aggressive the playstyle became, how aggressive the use of strikers that kind of held people in place or kind of took them out of the fight for a long period of time. It made for a lot of interesting compositions that eventually became boring. That's why you see a lot of reliance on suits with very hard to cut supers or supers that are very hard to block or anticipate, like Silver Sumo. Yeah, that's definitely major criminal there. DLC practices. All I say, I wish they were in packs at least. If they were in packs, I think some of the costs would have been alleviated to some degree, or at least have like special.
They were in the JP. They were in packs for Japan, only for Japan, not for the EU and US.
I think they. It was only temporary though, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is super smart.
Yeah, that baffled me the most. Why would they make that? Why would they make having packs of DLCs separate is beyond me. Like they could have just gone with like Zeonic Front. They could have gone with like G Gundam. They could have gone with anything from IBO that they've displayed. But in the end, you just end up spending a lot more money than expected. And in a logistics standpoint, if you're actually running tournaments for the game, which is the next section I'm going to be going towards, if you're trying to run the game on a tournament setting and you don't have all the DLC suits, it becomes the biggest inconvenience possible. You could ask like Brett, you could ask like I don't know who said of the Super TSB, but the fact that having, and I think this is like fighting games as a whole, the fact that you don't have all the DLC suits available is already a logistic nightmare. Because you have to rush in order to download all those characters that people probably labbed on their own time, but if it's not there, you have to worry about hotel Wi-Fi and all that jazz. It just becomes another headache on top of a headache that's already present. So the DLC practices have been abysmal to that degree. The fact that there's no way around it. And the same thing with the hot scramble situation where if you didn't pre-order the game, you were pretty much square out of luck. Shit out of luck. EXS, I think if you had like the day one version of Full Boost, you were able to get them no problem because it came with the code. I don't think it was intrinsically available on PSN. I could be wrong. That was pretty much the story of him. But Hot Scramble for a strong suit being locked away into limbo is just stupid. And I'm glad that Bandai actually picked up on that with Lupus Rex, which is a good. The absence of LAN was the bigger thing, which is even funnier considering that one Evo they actually had a LAN build, and then probably with the hope of having it in like a future update, they didn't do it. So we were practically stuck with having to go with like ridiculous setups to have like a hotspot ready and just make sure that everything is absolutely stable and it doesn't explode to play the game. So we're actually at the mercy of whatever kind of element of nature, whatever element of the hotel was available.
If I can cut in real quick on that, if I'm not mistaken, when we did have that Evo with Gundam Versus, they did have a rep there And if I'm not mistaken, Brett talked to him, gave them feedback, but clearly they kind of just blew him off.
Yeah. Yeah, and the year that I went to Evo, and the same thing just pretty much happens. Having to set it up was a nightmare. We managed to get it done, but aside from like a few major hiccups that kind of screwed the brackets around, it's made things convenient. But again, it was always a logistic nightmare in order to set the game up for a tournament setting. And I guess one other next section might be forgetting it and getting it escape my mind. To check on that. Okay, so I guess if it might be leading into the section, likes and dislikes, dunks and criticisms. What could have changed the game? Yeah, I think the best way to probably reframe the question would be, how would you change the game?
I only have one dunk that I actually want to use. Just one. Now, True Blue should already know which one this is. So I'm gonna explain it to you guys. What happened? We're having a session, and this was after a patch had come out. One of our players, like me, is a bit of a hothead. And what happened is that one of our other we were all in a chat, in voice chat. So it was three of us were in a voice chat. We were just talking about whatever, and the fourth player, the fellow hothead, was not in. So I'm just saying hothead because I don't want to call this person out because I'm not trying to be a jerk, and I'm just saying hothead just because it's gonna make sense in a minute. And the hothead's partner was saying that he was a little upset because the person was not using comms. So me and my partner, I confirmed with him at that point, hey, you're getting my comms, right? He wasn't sure. We do another match, and I'm like, okay, cool, give me a second. I'm gonna give you a comm real quick. Nothing. So that's when they caught on. We were kind of tunneling to the point where we weren't even paying attention, and we found out that none of us were receiving comms, even though we were clearly pressing the comm button. So I'm like, yo, comms aren't coming in. Something's up. So the match ends. I'm like, all right, give me a second. I go check my settings, and G Versus had a setting where you can pick and choose if you received comms or not. And with a recent patch that Bamco had released, it was not mentioned in the patch notes, but the comms were set to off. So I thought it was stupid. So I told these guys, I'm like, hey, the comms are off. Check your settings. And lo and behold, everyone agreed. Everyone's comms was by default set to not receive anything. So Gundam Versus, this is honestly a two-part dunk, honestly. Gundam Versus was made as a built for consoles game, not an arcade port. So this game should have included chat by default. Maybe not because of how salty people can get, but whatever. But the thing is, why are you going to go, since you're going to force comms as the main communication, why are you going to turn it off? I'm like, are you stupid? Like, that had to be one of the dumbest things they've ever done. You know, that was easily one of the dumbest things they did, because once we found out, the hothead joins into the chat, and we're like, yo, check your settings. Your comms are off. And that right there prevented, because he was upset. He was about to yell, like, why aren't you calming? You know, what's going on? You know, that would have been a valid complaint. And, you know, that prevented the issue from, you know, worsening and escalating. So that was definitely one of the dumbest things that Bamco could have done. With the thing about voice chat and with the stuff about LAN, we did mention that earlier as a complaint. I think there's no excuse, because, again, this is a game that was made from the ground up for a console, so it should have had a native LAN mode. In their defense, Bamco added it to Mbon, but I still get the feeling that for a game that was in its own a reboot, if you will, of the franchise, because there was a from the ground up made game for console, I can't shake the feeling that the game was ultimately half-assed. And I think that's inexcusable. You know, from what I could tell, they haven't half-assed a Super Robot Wars game. I get that the main moneymaker for them when it comes to Gundam Versus is arcades. But if you're going to make a game for the console, a console version, and make it its own standalone, go all the way. Don't half-ass it, man. Like, that was really that was a major beef I had. Like, that's the one thing I want to just be like, yo, Bamco, like, you're stupid for this. You know, positives and negatives are one thing, but this right here was just straight up stupid. And that's really my only complaint, honestly. That's really my only dunk, or like really just how to change the game complaint that I had. Like that, and when it comes to DLC, either just come out with it, just give us everything. Give us everything off the jump. And if you're gonna do DLC, don't do it like you did with Gundam Versus, where you overpriced it and you had a lot of DLC. You know, don't try to get away with what Tecmo did with Dead or Alive, and don't do the same thing that y'all did with Full Boost, where they had a little bit of DLC and then we had to wait like forever and a day to get the rest of the DLC. Like, there was a long drought between some of the DLC, and that didn't make any sense. And the other one was, again, actually no, I guess I'm gonna have another one. This goes back to the complaint I mentioned about the Evo tournament, and when the conversation those guys had with Brett. Don't go over there and say that you're gonna listen to us and then not take anything into consideration. Don't waste your time. Don't treat us like we're stupid. You know, don't treat I get it that the most of the money for the franchise, again, comes from Japan and the arcades. But in case you guys haven't noticed, the arcade scene is dying, even in Japan. Okay, it was dying when it was starting to show that it was going away when I was out there in Japan and when I was in the military back in the early 2000s. You know, you made a release for us worldwide with Gundam Versus, and I feel that they didn't treat it with the same respect and care that they did with the Super Robot Wars games. Even if, for example, let's take Moon Dwellers. Anybody here play Super Robot Wars Moon Dwellers besides Blue?
Yep. No.
Let's be real. I'm positive everyone's gonna agree with what I'm about to say. The translation for Moon Dwellers is LOL. However, as LOL as it is, I'm positive everybody says thinking this. Yeah, it was bad, but you know what? At least they tried. It was a good effort. There was no malicious. There was nothing there that could be thought of as lazy, as you know, or just a bad idea. You can give it a pass. and translations for later games have gotten better. So Gundam's a big franchise. Let me go on a limb and say this. Would you guys disagree with me if I said that Gundam is carrying the mecha franchise? I mean the mecha genre?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. That's,
So shouldn't you? So you should treat the goddamn property with more respect. I understand that the main money comes from Gunpla, and again, the arcades for EX versus 2. But ultimately, I do think that the game was hurt by the half-assery that happened. Because mechanics could have been changed. They could have changed, boost consumption for boost dive. They could have, they made changes for the strikers that were bad. But then ultimately, Japan complained, and in my opinion, Bamco panicked and announced Extreme Versus 2 as a, hey, here, look, have this instead. And because everybody has fond memories of EX Versus, everybody just basically, I feel like right when they announced EX Versus 2, call me crazy, but right when EX Versus 2 got announced, that was literally them putting a bullet in the back of Gundam Versus' head.
Yeah, that actually makes a bit of sense. They just pretty much give it the old Yoa treatment. Give people that enjoy the XVS a shiny new toy, and ultimately, if anything, the fact that people called GVS EXVS 2 beta, considering that EXVS 2 was announced roughly after a year that GVS was already out. I could be wrong, but roughly that point, that's where everybody started having that thought process.
Yeah, I got something with speculation with that. It just felt like Versus was like a dip your toes in to see, we're going to do the next Extreme Versus, but, let's just try something. Okay, this didn't work. All right, let's just pull back and start from there. That's what I felt like at the end.
What was that?
Nothing. Okay. And now I actually figured out exactly what I kind of lost. I kind of figured out exactly what I was going to talk about in terms of the dislikes, but I guess I could be thrown in with the dunks. So I guess Green, you can kind of go from there.
For criticism and thanks, really the only thing I would have changed, what should have been changed even for M1 was that the account system, please have regions. For like every other fighting game in the world, please have regions based on continents. And yeah, I don't understand why they don't do that. I don't think I really have any criticisms. I think mostly there's literally not there's not a there's not a lot that I think you can do to make GVS that much better. I think the game was faulty at the core. They had their intentions with the game was pretty much to make it like to have continuous DLC, like Street Fighter 5 Attack, and you have like 5 seasons of DLC to add Sea Destiny, second season 00, 083, X. That's most definitely what they were their intentions. So that's why when in like Ghost Strike came out, they just took out a gun, shoot the GVS in the head, and dumped the corpse, and that's it. They just wanted to just wanted the GVS to be a cash cow, to make money from DLC suits, and they realized that that was working, and that's it. And I think GVS was a malicious game in the end.
Sloth, next.
Changing the game, there's like the whole like going very far into it would be like do like the Super Gundam Versus or something like that. That's like the big like balance patch or something like that. But something I would have done would be to take out more than half the strikers and really do not put a striker in the, like, because I know it was nice and stuff. I could summon a ball and would shoot. That's cute, but it was a little useless. Don't put a striker in the game unless it actually has, okay, so this is what this going to be used for. This is a unique striker, instead of having like 6 strikers that all run up to the enemy, melee them, and stun them. That'll be one big thing. Go back to the mobile suits, and just because there were a lot of suits that benefited. A lot of suits benefited from the overall mechanics, but things like the H1, specifically the Sparrow, benefited way too much from the boost dive and striker. Things like the Perfect Gundam just benefited so much from that system. I think we would need to go back and just do with the boost dive and stuff, make it a cost thing, where if you're 200 cost, it will cost this much boost to boost dive, versus if you're 3,000, it will cost this much. Just because it being universal made it very hard for lower cost suits. But besides like changing the roster, I wanted to keep it gameplay specific. There's not much I would change that wouldn't, besides what I just said and what you guys said. Overall, I feel like those are the most important ones.
Right. Yep.
So basically, start give it a strikers altogether. The two, like a striker, don't remove like strikers as a button thing. Just get over it, get rid of it, because strikers like a selectable striker that anyone, or they could not only get rid of, they could get rid of it, or like make it so that a suit can only pick a certain type of striker. Like let's say Gundam could pick only this type, like only like limited strikers. Like you can't pick any striker. You can only pick like, you know, any like one type of striker. I don't know how would you do that, but it's best to just get rid of strikers altogether. Uh, balance the boost dive for, and balance the low cost suits to be even useful in the middle game. Don't only low 200 that was even had Red Rosie was Silver Sumo. That's because she had a really strong melee and really fast melee. Basically, if you can't balance the other 200s, just make it, maybe make it 250 if you need to, like how 1.5k is in maxi boost on. This game I feel is not as console friendly as M-Bond been, right? It doesn't have like the console features, even though this is like a first Gundam Versus console game made for consoles, specifically for consoles, right? It doesn't have like, it doesn't have party chat, doesn't have doesn't doesn't have Wi-Fi indicators, right, for like people who lag as fuck. It's made for consoles, but like at the same time, the people who play console are like very different, right, than people who play arcade. Also, one could dream that this game could actually have a PC release, or any Gundam Versus game can have a PC release. That'd be dope as fuck if any Versus game can have a PC release, right? Because I have a gaming laptop, and that means I can play. If I see maybe not. I'm not sure. I could basically, but a PC would at least be dope. The single player was lacking a lot, so have it. Have the single player do something. Just not just be. You, as a experienced player, I could finish the single player in like 20 minutes. Everything. So make it more. Have something that's for the veterans. That's like more really difficult. That they can have a really tough time to beat against. Have some really good unique challenges that if you're not used to like let's say you only play 3Ks and really good with 3Ks, right? At 500, I mean, make it so that maybe have a challenge that you have to play the 200 facing off a boss battle. You know, it makes you play something different. Get your cost variety right. Other than the land mode, because this game just needs support too. Like, they should just listen to us. We knew what this game was going to end up like. We told Bandai what this game was going to end up like, but they did it anyway. Right? I I would just rebalancing the game mostly and have it if you want it to be like a different from like an arcade version, but still have the arcade version too in console. Just like let's say if there's an actual Gundam Versus 2, just make it more unique then. Uh, if you have to have a console version, but we know that this version flopped, so uh, I don't have much else to say about.
And I'll say one thing about that though, if anything, if I can interject. At least they learned with Mbon. At least they showed they learned. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
All right. So the one thing that I nearly forgot was 1v1. They should have just never added that in general. That being said, I guess one thing they could have done in the future, they could have just balanced the game a little bit more, give some actual love to the lower costs and the majority of the 300s. Actually have boost dive scale to the costs. So that actually matches their boost meter to some degree. Just level the playing field a little bit more, so it's a bit more. It gives some of the lower costs a bit of a chance, and it kind of lets the lower end of the roster thrive a bit more. Also, increase the tracking of certain attacks all across the board. Make actual range play a bit more viable as opposed to having to resort to close quarters combat. Kind of bring back the feel of what the EXVS had, but also maintain the identity of what GVS wanted to be in the first place. So, as far as that goes, that's pretty much the major thing on my mind. Also, doing away with strikers to some degree, just have them a bit more of a, maybe a bit more of a unique aspect to a suit. So, if a suit has a specific striker that could be used, or no, let me draw that. Yeah, just do away with strikers in general, but maybe leave like the ones that are from the suits themselves, or maybe something that's a bit unique to the suit that made its appearance in the series. So, for example, you probably have the perfect strike, have either the ale strike as an assist, or have the maybe something a bit more series based rather than suit based. But it's just mostly the
Yes.
yeah, just mostly the the lead suits instead. Maybe some of the partner suits. And also probably add a new kind of burst into the game as well. Since Maxi Boost has the extend burst, you could probably throw something as similar to it as that and just name it like Gale Burst, where it functions the same way and it has like a certain kind of extra boost to the partner so they can have that defensive benefit as well. That's something I kind of felt like it was left out somewhat, even though they wanted the game to be a bit more beginner friendly. But I think that's it. Everybody else kind of said their piece as regards to change, and it kind of does. But oh, and one final thing, I think probably adding some new maps would have been nice to kind of change things up, and especially
Not
maps that
even,
had.
not
Huh?
even just I thought, not even just I think the reason why the maps were so big was because of 3v3. I guess they were expecting 3v3 to be more widely used, but they could have just made smaller versions of those maps or just add, Side 7. So yeah, they just Side 7.
Or just a feature to turn it off when you're playing 2v2s.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, speculation. A little bit broad, but changed. So, for a Gundam Versus, what did you feel like could have been the next direction if there was like any kind of support?
Wait, say that again.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out what would be the best way in order to frame speculation. I was thinking of like a
The only
hypothetical.
thing, the only thing of speculation I have is I think that the general negativity that was surrounding Gundam Versus led Bamco to announce EX Versus 2 earlier than they wanted to. Like I'm convinced I'm convinced they announced EX Versus 2 earlier than they wanted to because of how bad of a reaction Gundam Versus had. And because of the positivity that came from from the positive reaction that came from announcing EX Versus 2, that allowed them to just ignore Gundam Versus and just leave it alone at that point because that was basically the lethal injection right there.
Anything you have to say for that, Green?
For speculation, I mean, I already said the game was pretty malicious from the start because of the DLC player base, and I don't know what. I've already said it before. Yeah, there's nothing really to add.
Lots? Anything?
I'm like very curious in like a parallel world where people really liked Gundam Versus, how Extreme Versus 2 would turn out. Like if Gundam Versus was just a very liked game, it was like, oh yeah, it's great. And we're here talking about how great it was. I wonder how Extreme Versus 2 would be, but it did feel like it was just like a toe dip of, okay, let's see if this works. Okay, it didn't. Okay, let's go back to that. And with the whole announcement, I forgot when it was, but they showed the timeline when, it was when MBON was being ported. They just didn't even show Gundam Versus in that timeline, but they showed like all the way back to the PS2 games. It's just like, yeah, they buried that hatchet. But besides that, yeah, they buried the game. They did the criticism. They just now completely forgot about it, especially the aforementioned PS Vita version.
Right, Geo.
Sorry about. I had to go do something. I
Wait, what'd you say?
no, no.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Whose turn was it?
Because I think he's doing.
All right.
I got nothing else to say about Gundam Versus. It just
No, just depressing. Yeah, I think we're done for this section.
Yes, in terms of like I had in mind, I feel like Gundam Versus was a blown opportunity just by how it was handled from the get go, and as time went on, rather hastily treat to EXPS2. I feel like they already gave up the game the moment they dropped the last few to DLC. Didn't feel like balancing the game after that and fine tuning everything else. Just left the game to sink or swim. Fortunately, it sank pretty badly. And by the time where I guess people wanted to escape from it all, just went right back to full boost. The ideas of, oh, maybe if we're lucky, we might actually get a max boost in our future, but that's not going to happen. And lo and behold, it did. And I guess the people that probably started off with Gundam Versus, who may have enjoyed what the game had to offer, probably became disillusioned over time and
Yeah,
jumped
that's
straight
me.
onto Max Boost. I think I know someone exactly like that that has had that kind of perspective where they started noticing that the fundamentals that they've been exposed to from GVS has pretty much been a detriment to learning Max Boost in proper form. If anything, it's game itself has been more of a poison pill than a boon to anything else. I just felt like it needed a little bit more care to help it sustain some sort of life. Because now I think the only way in order to get matches on GVS is through a Discord server. That's pretty much. I think at this point it's not even Kusoge, it's just bad. Nevertheless, it's people that's there's always going to be someone to play. Just gonna have to go extra hoops and jumps in order to get to that. Okay, now onward to the final section. That is the experiences. Yes.
These are mostly positive. I don't really have anything. I mean, I have criticisms, but ultimately, I did enjoy the game. It's just that the mistakes that they made didn't help, and the once they basically put once EX versus 2 got announced, they just basically said, okay, cool, like this game doesn't exist anymore, and that just kind of took the wind out of me wanting to play the game. And I noticed that most people who were around me that did play Gundam Versus basically just said, yeah, we're gonna go back to full boost now. So I mean, ultimately, I did have a positive experience. I just feel that they killed the game earlier than they had to, but they ultimately wouldn't have had to do that if they wouldn't have added all the unnecessary content. like all the bad strikers, for example. If they, all the development time that they wasted on the bad strikers, that right there would have could have led to better support. So, but even then, yeah, I had a good experience with it. I don't think the game fundamentally was bad, even if the mechanics were some things that I don't agree with. It's just that the way that it was ultimately handled, that's where they goofed up at.
Anything from the old
Yeah.
games that probably shaped that kind of perspective, or
What happened?
anything from the old games that you played that probably shaped that perspective, or it's just mostly.
No, I think it's mostly in general because, to be honest, they goofed up with the DLC for Full Boost also. Norn, Blitz, Sandrock, uh, FA Unicorn. Those suits should have never been added to the game. Those games were clearly for a future version of the game. They had no business being in the game because it didn't turn out to be like, let's say, for example, how ridiculous Akuma was in Street Fighter 2, but those were DLC and they were very dominant. If you're playing for meta, that's fine. But me personally, I think it's kind of boring when you only play when everybody just basically plays the same suits when they want to win. And while I don't fault you for wanting to win, I think there's a problem with the game. I think there's a problem with the game when I want to win really boils down to picking a very small faction of the cast. So that just
Okay.
but even then, going back to Gundam Versus, because let me not veer off. I think the mistakes they did and how they just said to hell with it so quickly. That was really bad. I hope that I do think ultimately, they learned their lesson right now because they have Lupus Rex as free. Even if you didn't pre-order, you can still get it. I hope they took the lessons and the mistakes that they made, and take the mistakes of Gundam Versus to keep it in mind and not repeat it in the future, like everybody else does when it comes to making looter shooters and repeating the same mistakes that their forerunners did, kind of like with Destiny and Division and Anthem. Hopefully Bamco looks like right now they've learned their lesson and from their mistakes when it comes to Mbon. So yeah, I think right now overall my experience was positive. The mistakes hurt the game, but because Bamco looks like they've learned, I think it's ultimately a good thing. I think it's ultimately okay.
Okay. Green?
Well, because I started with GVS, mostly my experience was like by the end, I was really mixed about the game because the game taught me a lot of bad habits, and the only reason I don't have those bad habits in Maxi Boost is because I played Full Boost and Vanilla in like 2018 and 19. So I was actually able to like improve as a player a lot by playing those two games. So when Max Boost came out, I was like same as like most everyone else who played Full Boost. But when I first started playing Full Boost, I actually could not even beat the AI on easy due to my bad habits of constantly trying to like boost dive because of muscle memory. How I didn't even know that fast falls like existed, that's like even a thing. And I didn't know how important cancel routes were in like Full Boost because in GVS cancel routes give you a 30% damage penalty. So why would you ever use them? Why won't you boost dash cancel it? So yep, that's a thing for in GVS. Hey, if you like,
Didn't know that.
I did not know that.
if you do main into sub, for example, like with like RX-78, you do less damage than doing main into boost dash into sub. You just do straight up less damage. That's a thing. Yeah.
That is stupid.
Wow. I did
How did
not.
you not know that?
I did not know that.
My bad. I was kind of stepped away for a second. What happened?
Explain it again, Green.
In GVS, cancel routes. If you do cancel routes, you get a damage penalty, a 30% damage penalty. Meaning you should always just boost dash cancel your attacks. You shouldn't do main into sub. You should do main into boost dash into sub always in that game.
Oh yeah.
Christ, that's awful.
Yeah, that's like because of that. I just like when I first started playing full boost, I just oh man, I literally could not beat like the AI on easy. I was actually like struggling. So yeah, because of that, so I was pretty thankful I was able to that. I literally bought a PlayStation 3 just for full boost and vanilla, so I can like, it's because I wanted to play more Gundam. But by the end of GVS, I pretty much started hating GVS. I'm like, fuck this game. I'm not playing it anymore. I'm going to buy another console just so I can like play Gundam. I got good Gundam game, good XVS game. So I played, full boost when and I even played Force. I even bought Force.
Up and named.
Yeah, the game shall be named. I'm banned now, pretty soon, yeah. So I think that's pretty much like it from my experience. Like it was pretty mixed.
Sloth, you're up.
Experience, I did enjoy the game while playing it. It was fun, it did do its job, playing a Gundam game, especially nowadays, just because we're not in the PS2 era anymore where they were just vomiting a bunch of Gundam games and some of them were like really good and fun. Because nowadays we get like, well, even now that we don't have that many, but it itched that scratch that I wanted. But there was just the whole like what he just said. I'm like, oh wait, I'm thinking back.
Yeah.
I'm like, I could have won a lot of games now. Thinking about it. I lost 30. I want a rematch. But it was a fun game. It did get people into the Versus series or just let people play with cool robots. There are things that like helped. Like I had to stop using the striker button and stop boost diving when trying to go back, or if like the beta happened, I tried to go back. It was look weird, but just I played it a lot. Even when the game was dying, I still tried to play it. When it was like once every other day, there might be a lobby. I still tried to play the game because I enjoyed it, and there wasn't really anything like it. Besides that, just off track. I don't know the name of it. It was the Gundam. It played like Gundam Versus. It was a game Bandai was trying to bring. I think it was called Retribution something.
Oh,
You could get it for like. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
Rise of Incarnates?
Yes, that one.
Oh god.
It didn't get. It didn't.
Yeah,
feel-
that game. Oof.
I was like, it didn't feel the same as Versus. So like, I got what I took. So it was like, okay, well, this is much better. But overall, I liked it for what it was. Trying to be positive.
And Geo?
Okay, so because I don't have many experiences with Gundam Forces, I have many good experiences because of Gundam Forces, right? So because of Gundam Forces, I branched into Discord more. I got more socially active because you had to even find lobbies, right? And find people you interact with, right? So because of that, I was got into like playing with some like a regular group of people, and it was really fun. Gunner Bullshit always gives me that casual good time vibe, but trying to play competitively is not a good experience. But just casually, it's a good time, and that's all I have to say about that.
Yes, my case, I've had like at the beginning of the game, I did have a bit more fun with the game, despite the O and Hot Scramble and everybody else is running a tear. But I felt like at the beginning of the game, things are a lot more fun because everybody had their own cheap stuff. But I guess as time went on, things got less and less fun to play with. A lot more BS was apparent. But I guess when it came to more of like the community aspect, actually meeting people offline to play the game and kind of enjoy the camaraderie that came along with probably the better half of my experience with the game in general. That's how I met Joe, Mahoko, uh, MF Cloud, Chex Guy, Floatwater, and even like some really strong players like Judgment King, who I actually got a very lucky win off of during Super TSB, where I just did like a super from across a map with Gundam Mark II. So that would probably be a memory that will remain in my head for how long, I guess. And then we got bodied after that pretty proper. But all in all, and I guess even at Evo, I had a really good time with people, even though everybody was running like 500, 400 teams, and the only team that actually won was a 300, 200 team of H1 Sparrow and H1 Spallow and Silver Sumo, which was a Japanese team. So there was that. All in all, I really just enjoyed that I met along the way. It's that cliche of the friends we met along the way rather than the destination. Can't get it any cheesier than that. But yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about GVS. Would I ever go back to it again? No. Do I wish there was another way for the game to get another fair shot? Maybe a GVS 2? Maybe learn from their mistakes and kind of be reborn anew with a much better, not a new coat of paint, but an actual engine job that really shows that they've learned their lessons from the past few games and onward. Yeah, I really do wish that GVS actually got a better chance. I guess that question, yeah, discussion of the roundtable. There is an article. I probably do want to, might be Times posted in Hangar, or it is in the Hangar at the moment for anyone else to read. It's the twit longer that SSO Sunhawk made. Ending note that he down. So I guess you can pull it up side and if you have it up on your screen.
Yep, I got it up.
Yep.
The tree longer from Sunhawk.
Yes. Ending section that I'm pretty much focusing on in particular.
The
Everything
ending
else,
section.
yeah,
Yeah, the ending note. Yeah, at the bottom.
because it just compounds everything into a succinct summary that had all the notes that he said from the article.
1 second.
And it kind of goes back to what I said about GVS supposedly being a beginner-friendly game. But as we kind of hashed out to some degree, it felt like it wasn't really much the case. So not whatsoever. In fact, if anything, I feel like this is like the boomerang effect. That whenever developers try to downsize a game to be more open to new players, it ends up hurting the game a lot more than it helps. because it just leaves a lot of room for very bad implementation of system mechanics, as well as promoting bad habits if anything, introduce some even worse habits if they're going into a game that is a bit more well-rounded. Say if someone is going from Xrd to Guilty Gear Accent Core, they may have some fundamentals that may stick around for Xrd, but Accent Core may be a different beast to deal with. Same thing with GVS players going straight to like Max Busan. Just getting used to the muscle memory of not boost dashing on reaction or on any kind of purpose would be burning, kind of shake yourself out of. So,
Yeah, I looked at it. This is kind of just going. This is kind of just going into the same thing that I've been complaining about the most with Maxi Boost. Honestly, people need to slow down.
so
Yeah, actually, I kind of see people not playing as a team. As I complain about, like, oh, they playing for themselves most of the time. If people have gone to G forces, they're not playing it as a more rounded team. Even I like to screw around with like 1.5K, occasionally, but at the same time, I know how to handle those type of suits and not like try to OC my partner. you know, most people don't care if the lower cost suits. They just want to go in.
they feel like because they have the lower cost, they could go into more lives, and that becomes a bit more toxic mindset.
Yes.
Okay, so reading on. Ending note. On the game's initial release, I thought GVS had the potential to be a high skill game. I had difficulty adapting to many of my previous EXVS mechanics and increased pace. Seeing the even faster pace of the EXVS's core gameplay in GVS, I originally concluded I would have trouble keeping up with many of the newer generation of players. Unfortunately, the bad implementation of strikers, along with many suits being copy-paste designs of each other, left the entire team tested. The convenience of newer mechanics has left some old players lost and new players with unstable foundations. Turn of individual suits and ability-based fastfalls in Max Busan. Control of boosting and landing fundamentals will play a huge role in performance in game. The overall game pace slowing down compared to GVS, but more concentration. Mban will likely be more difficult to play well in general, as with some other slower GVS games, slower Gundam Versus games. Consequences such as punishment versus reward will be steeper. This was always almost the case in the past with gameplay speed and pace adjustments to the series. Main reason players have adapted bad habits from GVS and might find themselves struggling with Max Boost is due to the fact they have neglected the core fundamentals of the series, but instead decided to focus on attractive new mechanics. A player with solid fundamentals accustomed to the slower pace of older Versus series would only need to worry about learning new mechanics and keeping up with reaction time. So, what do you think was probably the takeaway from that?
Well, I mean, I agree with it. I pretty much said very similar things to it.
I found the interesting part at the end where it was more of reacting with the boost dive and striker. I didn't even think about that, but a lot of people weren't reacting to situations as the mobile suit. They were reacting to situations with the boost dive mechanic or the striker. So it's not even that the mobile suit had an answer to that. That the striker boost dive was already the answer. which might have crippled a lot of people from being creative and figuring out a different way to solve this problem or approach this scenario or get out of this scenario.
Yeah.
So you don't have anything to say about the Trit Longo. It's basically bad fundamentals. Give it all. So.
Yes, my takeaway from it is it kind of goes back to what I said about the game itself. The way that the pace kind of felt, it rewarded a little bit more of an aggressive playstyle rather than the ranged and methodical playstyles you would find from Max Boost on. That's why you have suits that have a bit better mobility or faster ways to close the distance, being a bit more of a menace and just remain uncontested, as he said. The balance was skewed from the start the moment that you have those high mobility units kind of being able to control the entire pace of the match without even having considered the resources being sacrificed. And if anything, the mechanics of the game kind of contributed to a lot of bad habits that grew time, which is why some players that might be coming from GVS or prefer GVS have trouble adjusting to certain mechanics within Max Boost. See that they're having trouble figuring out ways in order to practice those fundamentals and just get rid of the bad habits. All in all, it just seems that, like I said before, GVS was pretty much a poison pill. Ready? So, any final thoughts?
Yeah. Hey, Bamco, make sure you learn your fucking lesson. It's really good. That's really good.
Don't let Maxi Boost die by next year. Hopefully it gains more following, but I think they could stop by using a physical release.
It's the funny thing. Why they actually went with a digital version instead of, well, maybe probably because of COVID, it might have done something about it, but
probably good at Koof.
Good news though, your digital PS4 games will be able to play on PS5, so you can play Gundam on PS5.
that's good to know.
Hopefully we get future Extreme Versus games. Hope this isn't the end of it. Like, yeah, it's gonna be a iteration late, but hopefully this isn't the last of the console ports.
We're going to see, like,
Yeah, ditto. That'll agree with.
Now, we're gonna see X-Fist 2 in like 10 years, don't worry about it, man. In 10 years.
Yeah, at that point we'll have EXVS Universe.
Accent Class.
Yep.
I don't think we'll get Extreme Versus 2, but whatever happens after X Boost, we'll probably get X Boost maybe.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, we're always gonna be a version or two behind, so that's what it is.
Yeah, speaking of X Boost, do you guys have any like speculations of what might be in the version or suits you might want in the game?
I mean, I think more than anything else, the biggest sure thing for X Boost is going to be Core Gundam and probably a couple of other from Build Fighters.
That's definitely.
I think the easiest thing they can do is bring over some of the suits from G Versus
Yeah.
because I'm pretty sure it shouldn't be very hard to add the suits from G Versus to X Boost, tweak them a little bit, and go from well actually no. Now that I think about it, the low cost suits that were all basically copy pastas, those are gonna need some touching up to actually be a little more unique. So that might require a little more work than I think.
I mean, some suits are probably.
Um,
Oh wait.
I'm gonna say that X Forces 2 cross boost better have Lycus Klein or Ugna White. If
Hmm.
it's a Lycus Klein IJ, Ugna White. It's X Forces 2 doesn't have it. I'm kind of sad.
Yeah, they took out a lot of the clones. Yeah, we're
Yeah.
definitely gonna see the core. I hope the Zeonic Front, like Gouch Knights, Zaku and Commander. I really
I
like
mean,
that.
if they I forgot about that. If they bring in those Zeonic front suits, don't add in those stupid mechanics. For example, Mudrock taking more damage or hit from behind. That's stupid. Remove that. That was a bad idea.
I don't know
I
if
didn't
they
like
had
that at all.
burst.
Sorry, go ahead. Hmm?
What the cross boost is adding, like the new
I mean,
mechanic. I don't. What I thought it was like you and your teammate could both burst at the same time and something would happen.
yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Well, yeah, that's kind of something I'm thinking about actually. Like, yeah, that if person A burst, that it'll allow person B to also burst at the same time, and even if they're not able to boost, I'm sorry, even if they're not able to burst, maybe they'll do something, maybe they'll pull something silly like that. But we'll see. Like my thing is, they already have linkage, so that's one thing. So what I'm expecting is, besides the usual new suits and rebalancing, I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure. I'm assuming they're gonna add something with mechanics. It's just that boost dive and strikers were looked at in a positive light, so I'm hoping it's not that.
You know what else wasn't look at a positive light? Ever think about it? Maxi Boost the original. That wasn't looked on a positive light by Japanese players.
Maximus what?
Because the Maxi Boost original, before
Oh yeah. Vanilla Maximus
because that.
was
Yeah, it had that weird thing.
drive system.
They better not do something like that.
Banshee noises. Gundam. Yeah, Vanilla has some really weird stuff. Like Master, I think did Master have like 800?
Did he? It seems like way too wait.
Yeah, I think either Master or Epion had 800.
Yeah, and then Manila Double Riser wasn't useless. He was actually the best Riki for a little bit.
Yep, and Zedra was one of the best 2.5Ks too. Hit like a truck.
That game was the reason why we have a 2 game gap instead of a 1 game gap, because when that game came out, most Japanese players just went back to full boost.
Mm-hmm.
Because some bullshit shit.
It was absolute B. Just pure Kusoge. But I guess at the same time, I really want to experience it for myself. What it was. I just want to know, did we miss out on?
Probably like a little bit better version than Gundam G Versus, to be honest.
Yeah, because everybody had like some level of cheap shit.
Yeah, that's something I always never liked when it was like that, where we never get to experience some things like, let's say we got Extreme Versus 2, uh, we would get it, and the suit that I always wanted to play was Daryl's 8 guy, because I just love the 8 guy. He got nerfed hard, so it's like, oh, I got the 8 guy when he wasn't great.
Yeah.
Or the Knight Gundam when he was literally S tier. Like, I've been like, oh, come on, I wanted to play as S tier Knight Gundam. And it's been like, we have to get what we got.
Like the final version of the game before the next one.
Yeah.
And then like right now, EXVS2, Epion is sitting pretty at A tier. That's
Yeah,
major concern.
On and Wing, funny enough.
I think because it has a 2B, the down slash back, and you could do the zero system at any time instead of boss only.
That's why.
I think it's
And it has emboss. And it's emboss on Epion, which is really scary.
Yeah, I think it's
give Epion emboss.
I think it's refillable. That's the thing. Like you don't have only one. You don't have one zero system.
Oh damn! Yeah, Epion's gonna be crazy.
Well,
Buff Alex.
Alex. Yeah, meanwhile, narrative and I think one other suit got.
I want to be a bird.
Well, he did become a bird. He became a pelican.
The Pooh's got hit hard.
Yeah, narrative and lightning. Lightning died.
Oh, the lightning was very, very good.
Oh yeah.
The burning try has been good. The entire run of Extreme Versus.
Oh, I had one more thing I wanted to complain about actually. I'm pretty sure everybody here will probably agree with me with this too. Guys, Bamco, just call Burning Gundam God Gundam.
Oh, yeah.
Just call it God Gundam. Stop.
The other
I mean,
Shadow
like
Spiegel.
what? Like there was one joke. Who here plays Gundam Battle Operation 2?
Yeah,
Besides me and Blue.
I play it.
So, did you get a good laugh when the Hyakushiki came out and they called it the Type 100? I thought that was hilarious.
Like the type.
I thought that was hilarious.
That was a
See
double-
that right there, like that right there. Just call it the Hyakushiki because at the end of the day, that's what everyone calls it, and it sounds cooler. But just call God Gundam God Gundam. You have the goddamn voice actor yelling "God to Gundam." So it's just call it the God Gundam. Just call it God Gundam. Everyone knows what it is.
You know what it is though?
Please.
It's that familiarity.
Unless you're gonna go and you're gonna get Domon Cashew's English VA, call it God Gundam. Let it go. Come on,
I
man.
think anything with religious undertones has some stigma to it.
I mean, that was
Right.
way back in like the 90s though, 80s and 90s, back in like the Satanic Panic days, where there was a lot of religious imagery and whatnot that was being censored, games and other media.
Yeah, I get back then, but like,
Like, who cares?
it could have been
I think-
or something. I don't know.
I think the internet made most people atheists, anyways.
It would be funny if they ported the build try suits and we got the burning try. So we just get the burning Gundam, then the burning try, and people just confused. They're like, are these suits related?
The Borning.
Burning Gundam. This is God.
Yeah.
They just call the burning try the god try. Just as the middle finger.
It's just like
"Ah."
it's just like the Super Saiyan transformations. Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan. It's all that stupid mess. Just becomes convoluted after Spiegel being called Shadow. Oh yeah, Spiegel being called Shadow Gundam.
I
Guys,
hated that one.
taken away from the German ninja.
Yeah, I actually don't understand why he isn't called Spiegel. Why am I not calling that? There's nothing religious about that. It's just a gibberish word. I guess the Americans could not pronounce Spiegel.
Yeah, either that or it's probably some sort of like long-standing victory path. Anything that might relate to some degree. Who knows?
The only small thing I don't like is when Kai or custom is translated. Like things are
Yeah,
still like like the gym Kai is different from the gym custom, but we have the free custom. And like, oh come on, this bothers
Yeah,
me.
the naming stuff is a little confusing because it's like just call
pick
it the
one.
something Kai. Just leave it at that.
Just pick one.
You know.
Because yeah, I think in MBON all of them are called the custom.
Yeah. So by instinct, you would go directly to the Kai if you play like full boots or anything else.
Yeah. I know Battle Operation did it correctly, which was nice.
Yeah, one's the 250 is like the GM Kai, and then
Well,
after that, it's like,
Spiegel means mirror in German, so I don't give it. It makes sense in the story, but why it's called that? But why was it changed? Yeah, it must be pronunciation. I just checked what Spiegel meant because I forgot.
oh,
Nuclear is pronounced nuclear.
Well, at the end of the day, let's hope that we get some victory rep. They've had like 3 since Maxi.
yeah. What could they add? I think there's like one other Zanskir suit that they could add, but I just forgot the name. It
There's
has
a-
like those rings around it.
Yeah, there's a guy that piloted like quite a few suits. I can't remember the guy's name, but
Chronicle.
I think that was his
Yeah,
name.
yeah, Chronicle. Yeah,
He piloted a few suits. And, like,
The last thing he piloted was the Ricontillo. First thing was the Shokyu. I think he just bounced around after that. Those are the most notable.
I think the thing they could add for Crossbows was like a victory boss, like the stupid fucking dragon mobile suit in Victory.
oh yeah,
That was
later
just
part.
like, well, I do remember what it's called, but yeah, I was like, how would you find the boss to fight? You know, snaking around, and if you shoot it, it separates. Could be a fun boss.
Yeah. Oh, I guess we had a nice discussion about GVS and not. Thank you.
I'm
all
actually
for-
I'm actually have to say this was actually pretty simple. I was expecting a lot of rage, a lot of pent up anger.
I mean, a lot
was
of
the
the,
one
no,
that
this
was
is
angry.
good.
yeah, I mean, a lot of the
Man.
anger has pretty much fizzled out as time went on because if it was done like years ago when GVS was still hot, then I think there would have been a little bit more animosity. But as it stands right now, now that we actually have, I would say, a much better game
And
to
Bon.
work with, we actually
Yeah,
really
because
look
we have
back-
Emban a lot. Yeah, I would say I'm less mad because Emban. Like, if Emban didn't exist, I would still be like super mad.
For the most part,
Angry.
felt my competitive vibe until I didn't know like if it was Ember never came out, I would probably still be angry. But it came out, we have it, we all love it. No, that's why we don't want to dwell in the past. It is what it is.
Okay. So, thanks everybody for stopping on by. Appreciate you coming around, Sloth Cakes and Green and Gio. You got any social media that you want to shill before the show's over?
I don't have any social media.
But man,
I use Twitter every so often. I don't really talk on it that much, but I play MBON on YouTube, same handle. I like
Yeah,
the game.
he makes good videos and doesn't play Halo for him, and I tell him to.
I really suck with Tilda. I get hand cramps when I play the Handolfa.
Yeah, the Hidolph is definitely like you have to sacrifice your hands in order to
The hand
actually
killer.
get it. Yeah, so
All
many
about
mode
the
switches.
break cancel routes.
Yep.
It's like, hey, do you want to play a very technical, form-changing mobile suit that can dodge a lot of things? And it has a very unique play style? Well, do you want to play a worse version than it? Then play the Hidolfa. If you want to play a viable one, play the Reborns.
Reborn 2.
Like you could probably ask Deuce about anything when it comes to Hidolph and ask him about his hands. He could probably tell
He's
you a
just like
long tale about
he's
that.
like nah. He's like nah. I'm good. Now that I think about it, I haven't seen him play tank once since M-Bond's release.
He's played it a few times, just only as a bit of like a casual thing at this point.
Yeah.
A little bit less viable than it was in the past because the reload is a little bit slower.
Yeah, there's also stronger suits that are around that are able to not let him get going.
Yeah, if you want to just keep on shooting, play the Camper.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, Camper's silly.
but good.
Camper's lull tier.
Yeah, he'll be laughing all the way to the bank while you just block and die.
Yeah. Excuse me. That's one thing people like to do. Just drop supers on them every time because it's a win-win if you land a super.
Yeah, because if you block, you're
True,
going
he's
to
a
get hit
land
with
too.
the next follow-up explosions. Pretty much dead in the water.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So we can close the show down here.
Yep.
Again, thanks.
Yep.
Thank you all, everybody.
Was fun, fellas. Let's do it again and let's look forward to the next episode. And
All right.
y'all be safe. Have a good one, fellas.
All right.
Alright, see ya.
Some fun.
Yeah.
Just hit me up whenever.
See ya, everyone.
Okay. All right. Let's go back. So, thank you all for stopping on by with this nice little roundtable discussion. We had another guest, but I guess at the last moment, felt like he wanted to be a guest, but probably didn't feel like he was able to contribute much, so it's understandable. But I don't know what we could do for the next show, to be quite honest. We might have to look at the drawing board and see what we come up with next. Yeah, it was a really long podcast, I can tell you that. For almost 3 hours. Currently standing at 2 hours and 57 minutes. But, all in all, this was a pretty simple discussion for a game that I once had a fun and love for, but now I just have disillusionment and disdain. Green, don't. No. No. Anything but that. Anything but that. But yeah. This is Blue Shift signing off. Hope you have a wonderful night. And peace out. Another day in the hangar. Oh, life.